Hello, 8th grade. So the next piece of geometry that we are going to be talking about is triangles, okay? So we're going to start by focusing on the angles of triangles. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to break this into two sections, okay? So this first video is going to talk about the angle sum of a triangle, and video 2 is going to talk about exterior angles of a triangle, okay? So this is video 1, and our focus is on angle sum of a triangle. So just a few things to go over. A triangle is formed by 3 line segments that intersect at their endpoints. So that means that a triangle has 3 sides and 3 angles. The angles on the inside of the triangle are referred to as interior angles. Okay, so interior angles are the angles that are on the inside of the triangle. So they are formed by the segments that lie inside the triangle. Okay, and what we need to know about these interior angles of a triangle is that they are going to add up to give you a sum of 180 degrees. So the 3 angles of a triangle are always going to add up to give you a sum of 180 degrees. Okay, so we're going to look at some examples of using angle sums. Okay, so our first example, what we're looking at here. The city park is in the shape of a triangle, and we are going to find the value of x. So we are given 3 angles here. So we have our triangle. We know that this angle is 20 degrees. This angle is 44 degrees, and this angle is x degrees. Okay, so we have to find the value of x, so we're finding the missing amount. Well, we know that if we take these 3 angles and we add them together, we should get a sum of 180 degrees. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to write an equation, okay? You guys probably see, I told you weren't done with equations, that you would still be using them. So we know that these 3 angles, 20, 44, and x, have to add together to give us a sum of 180 degrees. Okay, now we're going to combine our like terms. So 20 plus 44, that is 64. So 64 plus x is equal to 180 degrees. I'm solving for x, so I have to get rid of this 64. So that means I need to subtract 64 from each side. So when I do that, that makes 0. That leaves me with x equals 180 minus 64 is 116. So that means that this angle is equal to 116 degrees. Okay, we had our 3 angles. We know that the 3 of them added together have to equal 180. And then we solve for x. Okay, your next example is in words, not a picture. Okay, so here's your next example, example 2. In triangle XYZ, if the measure of angle x is equal to 72 degrees and the measure of angle y equals 74 degrees, what is the measure of angle z? Okay, so just for geometry, when we're talking about geometry, this symbol, it's a triangle. So that means triangle XYZ. Those are the angles. This little m means measure. This symbol means angle. So this is the measure of angle x. This means the measure of angle y. And this means the measure of angle z. Okay. So we have 2 of the angles. We want to find the measure of the third one. So that means that we have to take all 3 of these angles and add them together. So our equation is going to be 72 plus 74 plus, I'm going to use z since I'm trying to find the measure of angle z. And I know that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle have to equal 180 degrees. So I set that up to equal 180. Okay, we're going to combine our like terms. So 72 plus 74 is 146 plus z is equal to 180. I want z by itself, so I have to get rid of this 146. So that means I'm going to subtract 146 from each side of the equation. That makes 0. That leaves me with z equals 180 minus 146 is 34 degrees. So the measure of angle z is equal to 34 degrees. Okay. Now, if you wanted to draw a picture because it was easier for you to see that way, you are more than welcome to do that. Or you can just take the information that you are given. Okay, so in the next two examples, we are not given the measure of any of the angles. So what we have to do is we have to use the information that we are given to help us find the measure of these angles, okay? So number 3, the measures of the angles of triangle ABC are in the ratio 1:4:5. What are the measures of the angles? Okay, so we have triangle ABC. So in order, A is going to relate to the 1, B to the 4, C to the 5. Okay, so since we don't know anything, we use variables to represent our unknown amounts. So that means we are going to let X represent the measure of angle A. Okay, so X, that's our unknown. That's going to tell us what the measure of angle A is. Okay. All right, so now for angle B, if I look over here, I have 4, and the ratio is 1:4. So that means I have to take whatever this is and multiply it by 4. Well, since we said that we were using X to represent the measure of angle A, that means that 4X represents the measure of angle B. Okay. And then for angle C, you always compare back to your first number in your ratio, so that's a 1:5. Okay. Well, since this was X, that means 5X is going to represent the measure of angle C. Okay. So we know that the measure of angle A is X, measure of angle B is 4X, and the measure of angle C is 5X. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take those 3 numbers and we're going to write an equation, because we know since these are the measures of our angles, they have to add up to equal 180 degrees. So for your equation, you're going to have X plus 4X plus 5X is equal to 180. You're going to combine your like terms. Remember, if you just have a variable, the coefficient on that variable is 1. So 1 plus 4 plus 5. So 1 plus 4 plus 5 is 10x. And that's going to be equal to 180. And I'm going to solve for x. So I need to divide each side by 10. So 180 divided by 10 is 18. So I know x is equal to 18. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to find the measure of these angles. So since x is equal to 18, for the measure of angle A, we knew that the measure of angle A was equal to x, right? Well, what do we know x is? X is 18, so that means that the measure of angle A is going to equal 18 degrees. The measure of angle B was equal to 4x. Okay, so that means I'm going to take 4 and I'm going to multiply it by what x is. So x was 18, so I'm going to do 4 times 18. And 4 times 18 is 72. So the measure of angle B is 72 degrees. And then for the measure of angle C, we represented that with 5x. So I'm going to do 5 times x, so 5 times 18, and that's equal to 90 degrees. So we just found the measure of all 3 of those interior angles of that triangle. So measure of angle A is 18. Measure of angle B was 72, and the measure of angle C was 90. Okay. All right, so we're going to do another one like that so you have a better idea for some more practice, okay? So for your fourth example, the measures of the angles of triangle DEF are in the ratio of 1 to 2 to 3. What are the measures of the angles? So we're going to do this the same way. So we have triangle DEF. So in that same order, we're going to come over here to our ratio and write DEF. Okay. So we are going to let X represent the measure of angle D, since that's my first angle. Okay. All right, so if I look next, I have 2. So for the measure of angle E, I have 2, and that ratio is 1 to 2. So whatever this is, that means we're going to multiply it by 2. Since we know that the measure of angle D is X, 2X is going to represent the measure of angle E. Okay. And then for F, and again, when we're comparing, we always go back to the first one, that's 1 to 3. So for F, it's 3 times of what D is. So since D was X, 3X is going to represent the measure of angle F. Okay. So now we're going to take these 3 numbers, X, 2X, and 3X. We're going to add them together because we know those are the measures of the angles. So I have X plus 2X plus 3X. That's going to equal 180 degrees. So when I combine my like terms, 1 plus 2 plus 3, that's going to be 6X is equal to 180. And when I solve for X, I have to divide each side by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, so that leaves me with X equals 180 divided by 6, which is 30. So X is equal to 30 degrees. So now we're going to take this information and plug it in so we can find our angle measures. So since we know X is equal to 30, okay, the measure of angle D was equal to X, and we knew that X was 30 degrees. So that's the measure of angle D, okay? The measure of angle F was equal to 2X, so that means I have to take 2, multiply it by what X was, which was 30, so 2 times 30, which is equal to 60 degrees. Whoops, you can't see that. Alrighty, and then I have the measure of angle, whoops, sorry, that was E. The measure of angle E, guys, sorry about that. The measure of angle E was 2X, so 2 times 30 is 60, so the measure of angle E is 60, and our last one is the measure of angle F, which we represented with 3X, so that's going to be 3 times 30, which is equal to 90 degrees. So the interior angles of this triangle, the measure of angle D is 30, the measure of angle E was 60, and the measure of angle F was 90. Okay, so the most important thing that you need to remember about the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is that the angles are always going to add together to equal 180 degrees.